Hello, and welcome to another episode of Focus on Outcomes, where we talk to local organizations and different people about the outcomes that they produce and the impact that that has on the community. Happy to be joined today by Elevity's Director of Technology, Peter Niebler. Peter, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jeff.
Peter, maybe you could start by just giving everyone an introduction of who you are, your background, and your role here at Elevity.
Sure. So like you mentioned, my title is Director of Technology. And what that means is pretty much everything technical funnels up to me, what solutions we put in front of people, how the engineering staff is structured, what services we offer as far as labor and hardware and software. So my background is technical. I've been doing some type of IT consulting for the last, 2 decades or more. Yeah, more. But been in that space for quite a long time. Was lucky enough early in my career to be part of some startup companies, see how those work, wear a lot of different hats, eventually settled on a technical role. And now here I am at Elevity, still doing it.
Great. So. More than 20 years. So just don't do the math on that, right?
Yeah. I quickly did some subtraction there, and I was like, ooh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Through that time, you've worked with lots of different organizations in various sizes and complexity. The later part of your career has been really identified as an expert to help organizations do good technical planning. And what we want to talk about today, as organizations are starting to think about next year and starting to think about what that plan looks like, is really talk around the financial planning for IT initiatives. What do organizations need to think about? What do they need to be planning for? How do they build that into their budget to try to eliminate surprises and have technology continue to be an asset for their organization? So when SMBs, that's kind of organizations maybe under 500 employees, really start planning for their IT budgets for 2026, what are some of the initial or some of the first financial questions they should be asking themselves?
First of all, a lot of these organizations, they don't plan on the IT structure. They're focused on their business. They have the time they have to move things forward, but IT doesn't often make it into that discussion because there can be a lot of unexpected costs and unknown costs as well within that business. So IT should be a part of that. So that's where I would start, is make it a part of your financial planning, and you can actually make it strategic at the same time, right? So asking those questions like, does this decision and how does this decision in IT move my business forward or affect my business, right? So that's where I see the start of this. When you want to break it down further than that, I look at it in really two categories. IT is a little hard to just nail down dollars and cents. Things cost a certain amount, but why you're doing it, it's either risk planning, mitigating risk, like downtime, or productivity, increasing productivity. Those are the two big categories I see for why you should be doing it.
Yeah, so if organizations are going to prioritize, obviously they have ongoing costs, subscriptions, other licensing types of things that are just kind of a standard part of their budgeting process. But they really should be thinking about what things are new, what things need to change, what are maybe the higher dollar items that they should be considering. How do you help an organization walk through that thought process and how to really, if they haven't planned in the past, how they start to build some of that muscle to be better at planning?
From my perspective, it's really getting to know what the business goals are. So you mentioned kind of what I call the nuts and bolts, like, you're going to have computer life cycles, you're going to have software that needs upgrades, but then you're going to get into projects like maybe you're going to move to the cloud, or maybe you're going to put in a new ERP system. And now you can ask questions of, what does this do for us? Is it make real-time inventory management? Is it give us flexibility to go into, remote work or get information or data into our systems quicker? So those are the areas that I like to go into when talking about those things. Yes, you have to dot I's and cross T's as far as all the regular costs, but now you can get into that strategic part where you're talking about what does this do for the business, and that's the productivity side as well as the risk. You can't pass that up or skip over that. That's mainly talking about backup and DR plans, disaster recovery. So, in knowing what the business requirements are to recover, a lot of businesses can measure downtime to a dollar amount. If we're down, a day or half a day or a week, they can put a dollar amount to that. And then you can compare that to what you're investing in for your backup and DR and see if it matches and it's worth it.
Yeah, and more of the advanced security functions, I'm sure, play into that cost equation as well. So you get into those discussions, they start to outline where their organization needs to go. How do you help them prioritize those initiatives? There aren't unlimited budgets in any organization, but specifically in SMBs. How do they work through that prioritization?
A lot of times, especially in the small to medium businesses, when they're talking about IT budgets, they're thinking computers and hardware and software, and they don't consider total cost of ownership. And Levity does that in a pretty good way with their clients. You may be buying services and stuff from us as your MSP, but that's not the total cost. Do you consider phones part of that? Do you consider mobile phones part of that? What all goes into this? Your internet bill, right? You're not purchasing that from an IT vendor. You're purchasing that from like an AT&T or somebody like that. And you want to have that total cost of ownership, so you have a base to start, and then you can start looking at your projects, road mapping them out, matching them to business goals, right? We want to be X size by next year. Okay, well, you're going to need a new location, which is going to need new network equipment, connectivity, all those things. So we can plan those and map them to business goals.
Yeah, and we take our customers through that process. We call it a technology roadmap, where we really build out what that long term looks like. When we are helping organizations do that, or if other organizations have one that they've built on their own, what are some common blind spots that you see when companies are looking out at the future?
Oh boy, blind spots. I'm going to go back to what I just said, that total cost of ownership, right? I think they miss where they're spending a lot of their spend on IT. And this isn't meant to be, derogatory or anything, but just a lack of understanding of what's available. Us as an IT provider, we get the luxury of working with a lot of different businesses, and we see what works and what doesn't work, and we can take that knowledge and experience to all of our clients. And they might not know, and we have to stay on top of technology, right? AI is a big buzzword right now. What does this do for my business? Well, we've looked into that. Right? And we can have that conversation and help you navigate that.
One of the frustrations that we hear from our customers or organizations that we're talking to consider being a customer, especially if they're at an executive or ownership level, is the frustration of surprises, unplanned costs, things that pop up in the middle of the year. And sometimes when it's technology or IT, they don't feel like they have another option. So how can we help those organizations plan for some of those unplanned and unexpected costs?
Yeah, I'd like to actually put that in the budget, right? Things do break, things go wrong, things take longer, projects take longer than they're expected to. All those things can happen. If you've put together a halfway decent budget, you can build that in there. A budget isn't an exact number. It's still an estimate, but you can either estimate high on certain things, or you can, build buffers in there to do that. And you can also move timelines. Right, that's one way that's done too. I just had it with a customer. We had a pretty tight budget for the year, and we even built in buffers for that. Some unexpected things came in where they had to expand some of their infrastructure, and we pushed out replacing some of they have a regular desktop replacement cycle. We're just going to move some of that into next year. And that's fine. A business has to be fiscally responsible. They can't there's not unlimited spend there. And just because it's in the budget doesn't mean it has to happen. And we can look at those things. And yeah, you could push that, or this is, reprioritized, based on current issues that are going on. So.
Yeah, and that plan and that roadmap really helps to frame that decision, right? If you know what else is coming, the impact that's going to have, that helps you to make that decision to push something off or to reprioritize. And I think that's key.
Just without that, everything's a surprise, and everything looks like a right now thing that I wasn't planning for. And so you have to have something. And then it's easier to move the pieces around than it is to not know what the pieces are.
When you're talking about a budget, maybe a little buffer, planning for the unexpected, I think one of the challenges that many of our direct contacts, the people that we work with, struggle with is how to get buy-in on that budget and how to sell that within the organization. So how do you help them frame IT spend in terms of the business outcomes? Like, yeah, it's a spend, but here's the outcome that we'll be able to either avoid or gain through this decision, especially when we're talking to finance teams.
Yeah, and it is a little wishy-washy with IT spend, right? A lot of people look at it as a drain, it's a necessary evil. But then there are those companies that look at it as an asset. But I'm going to kind of defer back to some of the things I said earlier, and we can dig into them a little bit more. But that's that when I'm talking to them, you're either mitigating risk from a cybersecurity event, or, why do I have to have all this security software? It's last year I didn't need this. Why do I need it this year? Well, the landscape has changed, right? The attack vectors are different. We've all started, even the office setting is different. There's a lot of home, workers, and the bad guys are getting better at beating the current products. So, there's that risk mitigation piece, whether that's cybersecurity or some type of, need to recover from backup, whether that's, something busted or some type of natural disaster or power outage. And then productivity is that other side of that. And that's the one that I think businesses really want to look at, right? You gotta make sure you're going to keep the lights on and keep things moving. And if something happens, you'll be able to recover. But then you want to really look at productivity. Do we want to put in this new ERP system? I'm kind of thinking off the top of my head, but maybe this is an inventory scanning system. And in the past, we had to send somebody out, once a week to audit and make sure, or, numbers weren't right. Now we get real-time numbers. And so we can maybe ship things faster, or, run reports quicker and predict, have some type of forecasting that's readily available. Those are those two categories, that risk mitigation and productivity.
You've mentioned productivity several times, and we're having lots of discussions with customers about how can AI help us be more productive. Yeah. So organizations are thinking about AI. What should they be kind of planning for and potentially building it in next year's budget around AI, specifically if they're just getting started or just starting to think about AI?
Yeah, AI is a tricky one. I even think it's even trickier in the small to medium businesses, but we didn't plan that segue, but that's a good segue. I actually look at AI right now in the small business as productivity, or even like an edge on competition, right? You're better at what you do because maybe you're a little bit faster, or you have more ideas available to you. I think some people look at AI as the headcount reduction, and I don't think that's realistic in the small to medium business. They're on slim headcounts as it is, but maybe you don't have to add more people quicker as you grow.
For owners that want to start thinking about AI, what should they maybe build into a budget for next year?
If you're thinking about it, don't jump all in. Right? Don't go pick a product and buy it for everybody and commit to it and expect them to know how to use it. It's something you do want to plan for. Just like any tool, you don't just throw it at somebody and say, okay, now you're better because you have this. You got to teach them how to use that. And how are you going to incorporate into the business, right? What is the plan for this? And how do I use it? How do I use it with my data versus just any old data? What are the outcomes I'm looking for with AI? The businesses that do that, we've seen a lot more success. And then evaluate it after, right? Okay, we've been using this for a year. There are tools to see who's using it and who's not using it, and give you some insight into, has it been helpful? Maybe it's only helpful in one department and not the other. Maybe we're not using it right. Why are we only using it in Microsoft Teams and no one uses it in Excel? Well, let's dig into that. So planning is a real key for AI.
So an understanding of how you'd like to try using it, what areas you'd want to focus on. Maybe it's looking at the applications you're currently using, your CRM, your ERP, other applications, to see if there's some maybe AI built into that, and you'd want to maybe set some time aside for some individuals, or maybe you'd want to acquire a couple of Copilot licenses for some tinkerers that would like to use it to start to evaluate the impact that it can have. But just plan for some of that, maybe both time as well as some expense to work through it, but build a plan around what you'd like to achieve and what you'd want to accomplish.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, this overly complicated thing, but something as simple as even bringing somebody in that knows how to use that, and then start giving you examples of this is how this business has used it, or this is what it's capable of in this program. And light bulbs will start going off for people like, oh, so that means I could use that over here and it can do this. And that's the type of things that happen. And so it's not like this overly complicated plan. It's first understanding how to use it. Light bulbs will go off. And then you'll start saying, okay, let's try it here, here, and here.
Yeah. So overall, if you're thinking about how to start to plan for some technology budgeting, really is to start thinking about some outcomes and some direction. Start to build a plan for that as it relates to and how it relates to your overall strategy. What components are kind of foundational that you're going to need to spend money on that's probably recurring, and what additional things might need to be considered for next year. Build in a little bit of a buffer and have a plan for when you'd want to execute that. Kind of high-level overall summary. If somebody had a takeaway, maybe they could grab that 30-second snippet and take it to their next meeting.
Yeah, you're really good at that. You listen to stuff and then you summarize it really much better than I said it. So thank you.
Executing on maybe a little different story, but I can summarize.
Sure.
Let's transition to our unfocused section of the podcast. I'm going to ask a couple rapid fire questions and looking forward to your answers. So first thing that comes to mind, what was the last show you binge watched?
Well, I binge watched the 3rd season of Squid Games, and it's a terrible show, but I can't stop watching it. It's terrible. And then my recommendation is a couple of weeks ago, we binge watched Mobland on Paramount Plus. It's kind of an Irish mob, modern day show. Guy Ritchie directs it. It was fantastic. Loved it.
I would second that recommendation.
You watched it? You saw it?
I have. Yep, I watched it all.
You're kind of on the edge of your seat the whole time, like, oh my God.
So you're going to be announced for something, big presentation or something. What would be your walk-up song?
Oh, yeah, sure. I would pick, I want 2 again, but I'll go with 1 this time. Bad Reputation, Joan Jett. I just think that song comes out really strong, and it's a fun song.
It's not a reflection on your reputation?
Some people might say so. I hope not, but
depends on the circle.
That's not why I'm picking it.
Favorite video game growing up?
Oh, I played a lot of video games. I played a lot of them. The one I probably spent the most time on and really enjoyed was the Nintendo Legend of Zelda series. They had a lot of them. I don't know if you know what that is, but
I do.
It's a little bit of mix of different types of games and a puzzle at the same time. And you got to concentrate and you got to figure it out and you got to go. And at that time, we didn't have the internet, right? I'm dating myself here. So I had to figure it out all on my own. There was no cheat codes or, something to go look it up. Maybe you could go get like a book that somebody wrote on how to do this, but that's it.
I think there were cheat codes, but you had to actually play the game to learn the cheat codes.
I should have said no cheat codes, but there wasn't like just, I'll just Google how to do this and figure it out.
So if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Tacos.
Hard shell or soft shell?
Soft shell, for sure. But tacos turned into a whole bunch of different things. Like I consider like a burrito a taco. So like I feel like I get more than one meal out of a taco. You don't think a burrito is a taco? It's just a taco rolled up.
Yeah, but okay. So do you consider a taco a sandwich?
Oh, here we go. Taco sandwich. Wouldn't that make a hot dog a sandwich then? No.
Yeah.
No, a taco is not a sandwich.
Same concept. Okay.
Maybe.
Well, burrito definitely is not a sandwich.
No, not a sandwich. Not a sandwich.
All right. What's your most used app on your phone?
Well, it's for work. It's Teams. That's no fun, though, right? So I use Teams the most on there.
What about non-work?
Non-work, I don't spend a ton of time on my phone, right? I'm not on social media. I'm not on any of those things. So yeah, I just don't spend a ton of time on my phone.
All right. Well, thanks for your time today talking about planning and sandwiches, whether a taco is a sandwich. Appreciate your time. Hopefully organizations will be considering how to build a better plan for 2026. Of course, Levity would be more than happy to help you through that process if you're considering it and would like some assistance. But thanks again for joining, Peter. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks. Take care.